guys, it's important to remember, the smaller countries in all of this, and some of the smaller countries that have been hit with tariffs, and spare a thought, you know and maybe you might be thinking of, like, yes, Cambodia or Mozambique, but also spare a thought for Israel, our greatest ally. Betar USA asks, we strongly urge real Donald Trump to reserve the 17% tariff on Israel. Good behavior should be rewarded, not punished. Israel canceled tariffs on imports from the US, and this behavior should be rewarded. We're good behavior. Good behavior. This is amazing. Again, Betar is like a Zionist organization, does a lot of propaganda, but so this is not an official government outlet, but it's amazing to be like, we're your greatest allies. Look at all the brown people we've killed. This is good behavior. Good behavior, skirting international law. That is good behavior. So, and it's so funny that we also slap tariffs on Israel, which is like maybe the only country I'm cool with slapping tariffs on, and now folks are complaining about it. And just to check in, guys, and it's going to start to get a little bit sad, but trust me, there's a little bit of an angle here. But things are not well over in Gaza. In fact, things continue since the end of the ceasefire on Israel's watch. Things continue to be awful and murderous with, again, children and aid workers. And I just want to talk about a little bit of that. At least 100 children are reported killed or injured every day in Gaza since the strikes resumed on March 18th, according to UNICEF. Since the war began 1.5 years ago, 15,000 children were reportedly killed. That is, think of the number of who have been injured, maimed, rendered disabled. 15,000, I assume, is very, very, very low. So that's by UNICEF's estimations. 100 children are reportedly killed every single day. If my calculations are still right, which I haven't done an updated calculation, but again, it's every 10 days is about an October 7th has happened in the last year and a half on the people of Gaza, to say nothing of the ongoing violence in the West Bank. But, there is fallout from one of the most heinous crimes of this entire genocide, which is the targeting of aid workers. Hundreds and hundreds of aid workers have been targeted by Israel deliberately. And on March 23rd, it seems like 15 aid workers were executed. So I was hearing different reports and seeing them, but it seems, and this is according to Jazeera, that yes, 15 aid workers were killed by Israeli forces in Rafah last week, were shot at close range in what appeared to be an execution-style killing. The Palestine Red Crescent Society has described it, quote, one of the darkest moments of the war. When the Red Crescent Society is saying it's the darkest moment of the war, it's the darkest moment of the war. Forensic analyst Ahmad Adair, who personally examined the 5 bodies at Khan Yunis's Nasser Hospital, said evidence pointed at close-range gunfire. Preliminary analysis suggested they were executed not from a distant range, since the location of the bullet wounds were specific and intentional. One observation is that the bullets were aimed at one person's head, another at a heart, and a third person had been shot with 6 or 7 bullets in the torso. The aid workers disappeared on March 23rd during a rescue mission in Rafah's Tal al-Sultan neighborhood after it came under attack by Israeli forces. Now, I just want to let you guys know, the Tal al-Sultan neighborhood had been systematically targeted. There were mass graves, women, children being shot, air raids. They were responding to a specific air raid, but these are neighborhoods that are just like left to fend for themselves, sitting ducks. So here you come, 15 aid workers to try to mitigate the harm that is already being done by Israel. According to the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, after the first rescue team was killed, other emergency crews searching for them were also repeatedly struck over several hours. A week later, 15 bodies were discovered buried in sand, while OSHA described it as a, quote, mass grave. Al-Khatib also said the PRCS, that's the Red Crescent dispatchers, overheard a conversation in Hebrew between Israeli forces and some of the aid workers, indicating that at least some were still alive while in Israeli custody. 408 humanitarian workers have been killed, including 280 UN staff. Why do we expect Israelis to follow international law when, I mean, look, it's good. Let's have a record. ICC, I'm all for it. ICJ, I'm all for it. There's a reason that they systemically tried to undermine the ICC and terrorize its head for years and years and years because they don't want any accountability. But you're directly killing aid workers, UN workers. You've been doing this. It just won't stop. It will not stop. It goes on and on and on, and until, and it's wild to say this, but some unsavory characters are saying some really obvious things. So I give you Exhibit Candace Owens, who is tweeting a few screenshots from newly minted, well, not minted yet, but he is soon to be minted Congressperson Randy Fine, who ran in Florida, I believe, for Matt Gaetz's old seat. And Ron DeSantis is pissed at Randy right now because Randy did not win by a big enough of a margin. So it's Republicans, we should blow them out. Let's make Florida a swing state again. Let's make Florida a swing state again. Sorry, I just had to have a little dance break. The point is that Randy Fine, whatever, he won, but not by as much as it was expected because he's a Republican in this district. But Randy Fine has said on Twitter, there is no suffering adequate for those animals. May the streets of Gaza overflow with blood and kill them all. Hashtag no mercy, hashtag bombs away. And Candace tweeted this with an image of a literal baby who is underneath rubble, who's been pulled out of rubble. And she tweeted, "This is who President Trump just endorsed for office. This is absolutely appalling and is revealing as to who is in charge of the White House. Any person who can look at a picture of a murdered baby and mock it is a monster. Do not vote for this genocidal pig." Oh boy, broken clock situation. Broken clock situation. Here's how I feel about Candace Owens. There are many other people to platform beyond Candace Owens. I don't think that any serious left program should, if they do interview her, they should absolutely nail her for all of the things that she said. The racist things she said, the classist things she said, the praising of Hitler, and also some of her low-key, actual anti-Semitic beliefs. But it is important. And look, I don't know if there's an ulterior motive here because I do think Candace Owens, friendly with Nick Fuentes, friendly with Kanye. This is someone who probably says the Jews control everything, kind of in behind closed doors / openly. But you got to hand it to her for actually calling her own party out, calling Donald Trump out for supporting this. Just like we all should have been, if you were not, calling Joe Biden out for supporting the exact same goddamn thing. And calling Kamala Harris out for not putting enough daylight between her and Joe Biden when it came to this policy. I take it. Here's how I feel about this tweet. I like it. I didn't retweet it. That's the line. I'm not going to retweet Candace Owens. And I'm not even going to retweet it with a when you're losing Candace Owens, because again, it's a little bit of an anti-Semite. So you don't know if there's an ulterior motive, right? But this is sort of what I think, people like my husband, people like, anti-Zionist Jews who have been sounding the alarm and saying, we need to stop, we need to de-link Judaism, our faith, our identity, our ethnicities, our culture with the state of Israel, is because it is so clear what Israel is doing is a massive war crime, is genocide. It's clear to everyone in the world, and that the greatest purveyor of anti-Semitism, either because of who they deem to be Jewish vis-a-vis their loyalty and allegiance to Israel, or by the way they collapse Judaism with the state of Israel and give all Jews a horrible name that the greatest purveyor of anti-Semitism in this country, in this world, is Israel. It's been Israel. It continues to be Israel. It's a bad look. Jews don't want to be associated with Israel because they don't want to be associated with this. And anti-Semites, actual anti-Semites who pay attention to reality, i.e. Candace Owens, and isn't, to her credit, cowed to the point of not saying anything, is going to point this stuff out. You know, it's like there's only so much you can push this before it's like, you know, the right starts to latch on. And this is why I'm like, it's the same with the anti-war stuff where like the right was able to latch on to this BS, empty, hollow anti-war rhetoric, isolationist rhetoric that they never were serious about, but that the left, that the movements, anti-war movements against Iraq, Afghanistan, all of these awesome movements that we popularized, we were the ones to push. We were the reason that Obama became the nominee in the primary, not Hillary Clinton, who did support the Iraq war. That was a massive difference. But Democrats have failed to take the lane up of being really anti-militarist, of truly forget anti-imperialist, but truly for peace, right? And instead, it's been mangled, and the legacies of the war on terror have become all twisted and co-opted by the worst wiles of the Republican Party. Meanwhile, Democrats are out here being like, yay, yay, Israel, yay, let's keep it going. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.